Mary Jo White has just been appointed by the president to be the new head of the Securities and Exchange Commission. There, she's supposed to regulate on the Wall Street banks and make sure that they're in line. Well, who is she? Well, she used to be the U.S. attorney in the Southern District of New York, where she oversaw Wall Street. Well, she then left and worked for about a decade defending Wall Street bankers. She worked in a firm that represented white-collar defense attorney. They were white-collar defense attorneys, and they represented those bankers, including, for example, Ken Lewis of Bank of America and John Mack, who would at one point be hired to be the CEO of Morgan Stanley. But nonetheless, the New York Times reporting this story said, in its choice of Miss White, the White House is sending a signal about the importance of holding Wall Street accountable for wrongdoing. Yeah, they're sending a signal. We will not be holding Wall Street accountable. We just hired their lawyer, right? New York Times received criticism of that and, in fact, removed that sentence later in the article because they realized how ridiculous it was that they were doing stenography for the government as usual. Now, if you want to know the real story of Mary Jo White, we turn to a Matt Taibbi article from February of 2011. It's called Why Isn't Wall Street in Jail? And explains the story of an SEC regulator named Gary Aguirre. Now, Aguirre had realized that John Mack might have been doing insider trading, and he wanted to pursue that. That's his job. Well, that caused a lot of trouble and a phone call from Mary Jo White to his superiors. Matt explains, quote, Aguirre, an SEC foot soldier, is trying to interview a major Wall Street executive, not handcuff the guy or impound his yacht, mind you, just talk to him. In the course of doing so, he finds out that his target's firm is being represented by former U.S. attorney overseeing Wall Street. That's Mary Jo White, who's going 4 levels over his head to speak directly to the chief of the SEC's enforcement division. Aguirre didn't stand a chance. A month after he complained to his supervisors that he was being blocked from interviewing Mack, he was summarily fired without notice. The case against Mack was immediately dropped, all depositions canceled, no further subpoenas issued. And that is how the bankers got away with everything. And the person who helped them do that, Mary Jo White, the person just put in charge of regulating the bankers. This is a sick joke on all of us. And if you're not convinced yet, listen to Mary Jo White on an amazing panel at NYU back in February of 2012. Now, on this panel is Lanny Breuer, who's in charge of the criminal division, who was in charge of it at the Justice Department, another guy who says we cannot ever prosecute the banks, but also Elie Spitzer and Neil Barofsky. What an amazing panel. But on the panel, which side does Mary Jo White go on? On the side that, oh, no, I am sure that the bankers never did anything criminal. Listen.
Anytime you've got a financial crisis of the unprecedented dimension and scope of what we've been going through, you're going to have crimes being committed. You should be aggressive where there is crime, but what you should not do is fail to distinguish between what is actually criminal and what is just mistaken behavior, what is even reckless risk-taking, and not bow to the frenzy.
Oh, just mistaken behavior. You wouldn't want to bow to the frenzy and actually prosecute any of the bankers. So she's, of course, not picked despite her saying that she won't prosecute bankers. She's picked because she says she won't prosecute bankers. All right, now I'm bringing in Michael Schur, of course, our political columnist, correspondent here, I should say, and David Sirota is a syndicated columnist and journalist, author of Back to Our Future, among other books, and he joins us now, too. David, you wrote about this earlier today. What's your take on the Obama administration's signal here to the bankers?
In a sense, it's an amazing political pick in that the Obama administration, I think, is banking on the idea that the elite media and politicians will see the word prosecutor in Mary Jo White's resume and say, well, that must mean she's tough on crime. They'll forget the idea that she hasn't been a prosecutor for a decade and that in that decade interim, she's been defending the biggest, most powerful Wall Street CEOs in the country. So politically, I think it's banking on voters, banking on the elite media, simply not knowing who Mary Jo White really is. I think as a citizen, as somebody concerned with the fact that the administration hasn't prosecuted a single Wall Street banker connected to the financial crisis, I think this is a terrible pick. I think Wall Street is celebrating right now, saying the person who's in at the SEC looks like she's going to get tough on us, but we know that she has a record of defending our interests.
Right, and New York Times also explains that it turns out she's not going to face much opposition from the Republicans. Wow, I didn't see that coming.
That's shocking.
Yeah, right. Now, Michael, obviously David and I are clear on this. What's your take?
I totally agree with you. Which is not something we always do. But no, I think it's actually pretty shocking that this appointment came down. I was trying to think about what the only reason, maybe David has some insight into this, the only reason they could have made this choice is that they feel like she would be good at implementing the Dodd-Frank rules that came out of the Congress and have not really been implemented to their fullest extent. And that's a stretch. I mean, man, I was trying to think of why they did this.
Can I cut in there? I mean, because that really is a stretch, and I'll tell you why. There's two reasons why. One, she doesn't have much experience, very much experience in terms of big experience, dealing with the securities industry. She's been somebody who's been known as prosecuting terrorism. The other point in this, which got very little mention, is that her husband is currently at a law firm, a private law firm, that has been lobbying to weaken those regulations. Now, I don't want to imply that spouses automatically do what each other want them to do in their professional jobs, but if you put all of it together, I can't believe that's the reason they're putting her in there.
Yeah. And the thing that bothers me most, guys, and we're out of time here, but is this revolving door that David writes about, we've all talked about. They go into government, then they go get paid millions of dollars by law firms to defend those guys that they didn't prosecute in government. Then they go back into government not to prosecute those guys. And then when Mary Jo White comes out, you can guarantee her $1 million paycheck for not prosecuting the guys she won't prosecute at the SEC.
Yeah, one thing that Harvey Pitt, who was one of the abject failures in that job, said she was a great choice. Enough said.
All right, well, that's a perfect note. Perfect note to leave it on. David, Michael, thank you. Now, when we come back,